Good morning, 8th grade. So this video is hopefully going to be pretty quick. What you're going to do is either during the video or after the video, you need to go to Class Kick and fill out that information so I know you watched this video and paid attention. It's going to really help us get started for our next chapter, which is Chapter 6, which is about linear functions and inequalities. But today we're just going to focus on Section 1, which is called Relations and Functions. Okay? So during this whole chapter, we're going to learn how to use the lines, we're going to use lines like y equals mx plus b lines, and to graph with them. You might have touched base on these a little bit before, or like in 6th grade or 7th grade, but we're going to take an extra step with it and learn how to solve when we have two lines and using that graph. Okay? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to start with relations and functions. So, going over relations and functions, we're going to have to begin with our terms. It's really important to go over what these terms mean so we know what we're talking about when we're explaining our math. So let's start with the term relations. Relations. Alright? Relations is just a set of ordered pairs just like, for example, x comma y, just like when we're doing a graph. So our coordinate pair is a relation, so x is in relation with the y is what that means. Okay, so within that relation, we have a domain and range. Basically, that means that the domain is just considered the x value. That's what domain means. And that means the range is our y value. So in terms of our coordinate pair, x is domain, range is y. Don't ask me why we have different names for it, but we do. So we're just going to have to go by them. We're going to use that in terms of looking at graphs to really tell what the relation is, and if there's a relation, what the domain is, what the range is, so on and so forth. So let's look at this graph. We're going to build a little t-chart. So we have x and y. Okay. So x is again our domain, and y is our range. So we have 4, 6, 8, so 8, 10, 12. In terms of relation, our relation is just the order pair. So like 4, comma 8 is a relation, 6, comma 10 is a relation, and 8, 12 is a relation, and so forth. Right? So wherever they meet on a coordinate plane is your relation. Pretty simple, right? So we're going to also get into what a function is. Right? I'm going to pause for a little bit so make sure you can write down your Class Kick if you need to. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes on that. Alright, so hopefully you are caught up on your Class Kick and we can continue on with our notes. So we just talked about relations, domain, and range, so on and so forth. So now we're going to talk about what a function is. So let's go with this one. Function. function. So a function is just a special relation. Basically, that means that the x and y are going to be related to each other in a certain way. So if they don't relate to each other, then our function is false. And we'll get to that when we start looking at graphs. So in a function, each element of the domain is paired exactly with the element of the range. So let's write that. In a function, each element of the domain So what they mean by each element of the domain, they just mean the number that's in the x value spot. Nothing too extravagant. So that is exactly paired up, is paired with exactly this is important, with exactly 1, don't ask me why lowercase that one, 1 element of the range. Okay, that just means that if my t-chart, little t-chart going on here, in my function, that x is going to be 3 and y means it's 5, right? That means if I have another 3, my y cannot be, okay, I cannot repeat this enough, cannot be another number like 7. This does not work. That is not a function, right? Because the x has 2 different values, so that is not true. It is false. Very important to note. So, no 2 order pairs in a function will have the same domain in different ranges. Very important. Absolutely cannot have the same domain in different range. It will not work, does not work. Just remember that. Okay? With that, your functions are also, of course, going to have some rules that go with it. So your functions will have rules or an equation okay, or an equation, equations, whatever. When that happens, you will use function notation. Use function notation, which is just f of x. And you do read that, not f times x. This is read, right? F of x. That is how this is read, okay? You have to read it f of x. It's not f times x, it's f of x, right? So writing your function notation that way is going to show that the output basically your range corresponds corresponds with the input, which the input is just the domain. We have some more words we're going to have to remember. And so the output, which is the range, corresponds with the input domain. That's important to know with function notation. Alright? So let's try and look at some of these rules to hopefully make a little more sense. Alright, so again, let's just switch your papers. Alright. So let's try it. If I have f of x equals 3x minus 4, we're going to have to find when there's f of negative 4. Okay, f of negative 4. So basically, let's out of focus there. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this f of negative 4, taking the negative 4, and plugging it into everything with x. So f of negative 4 is going to be equal to 3 times negative 4 minus 4. And we're going to solve it like we know how to solve in equations. We do not mess with this. This stays the same no matter what. Alright? That's what we're trying to find. So it stays the same. So we're going to carry that down. F of negative 4. And we're just going to solve for the right side. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12 minus 4. So again, we're going to solve that. Negative 12 minus 4, negative 16. That means f of negative 4 is negative 16. Which that means that, pull it out, put in our little x of y here, that when our x is negative 4, our output is going to be negative 16. That just means that f of x is another fancy way of saying the range or y value. So basically, if you're thinking in terms of x and y, f of x is just y. So it's basically saying y equals this, right? We're trying to figure out y equals, because we put that in for x. So that's what you get right here. That is a relation. So that is a function. That works. Alright? So you're going to have some more on your class kick to try on your own. So make sure you do that. And we have one more thing we have to cover before we are done for the day. Alright? We've got to talk about how to determine a graph. So to determine if a graph of a relation is a function use the vertical line test. Alright, so that means the vertical line test just means that when we look at a graph, so let's look at this first one over here, right here, this one right here. We're just going to take our pencil and we're going to mark it along here, and we're going to see if this pencil touches more than just one part of our graph. So if this is our little graph line function here, this little V, take your pencil and see if it touches, it double touches as you go across. And if it does not, like this graph, then this is a function. Now let's look at our next one, this little U right here. Right here. Let's take our pencil and go across. And if I look at it, oh no, look right here. The top of my pencil or pen is touching the graph, like the little U graph thing, and so is part of the bottom. So that means this is not a function. So let's try one bottom here. Again with this line, take it across. It doesn't touch more than once at a time, so it's a function. And let's try our last one. Alright, so right here. Take this across. It touches one part, only one part, so this is going to be a function. So that is the end of our lesson. So for tonight for homework though, you are going to have to practice how to find a function. So your homework is going to be to go to Math IXL, under 8th grade, under 8th, you're going to do Z.1 for 15 minutes, or I'll give you 85%. So this really should be a quick and easy one. You should get to that 85 pretty easy. Alright, because it's just telling you whether it's a function or not, basically. Okay? So I will see you all on Thursday.